So, Kylie Kelsey just broke down on her podcast, and what she revealed has everyone talking right now. And honestly, when I first heard about this, I had to pause for a second because this is not the kind of story you expect to hear from someone who seems to have it all together. You know what I mean? But here's the thing that shocked me the most, and I'm going to get into that in just a minute. But first, let me set the stage for you because the context here matters so much. Kylie has four beautiful daughters with Jason Kelsey, the recently retired NFL legend. And from the outside looking in, their family seems picture perfect, right? But what she just shared on her podcast, Not Gonna Lie with Kylie Kelsey on October 2nd, completely shattered that illusion and revealed something so raw and vulnerable that I think every single person needs to hear this story. Now, before I dive into the details, I want you to stick around because what happened next is going to blow your mind. The timing of everything is absolutely gut-wrenching, and the way she had to handle it shows a level of strength that most of us can't even comprehend. But let me start from the beginning because this story has layers that you need to understand. Back in August 2018, Kylie found out she was pregnant. And if you know anything about early pregnancy, you know those first few weeks are absolutely nerve-wracking. Like, every single day you're wondering, is everything okay? Is the baby developing properly? Am I doing everything right? And Kylie was no different. She was aware of all the statistics about early pregnancy loss, which, honestly, I think more people should talk about because it happens way more than anyone realizes. So she goes to her 6-week appointment expecting to hear that everything is progressing normally. And here's where things get interesting. The doctor tells her that the baby is measuring a few days late. Now, that might sound scary, but the doctor reassured her that it was still within normal limits, which gave her some peace of mind. But hold on, because what she decided to do next is actually pretty significant, and I'll tell you why in just a second. Despite being cautious about sharing pregnancy news early, Kylie and Jason made a deliberate choice to tell his family about the baby during a trip to London. And this is where my heart just breaks for her, because you can tell in her voice when she's recounting this story that she remembers every single detail like it was yesterday. She says she was very guarded about telling people outside her immediate circle because she knew the statistics. She knew how common miscarriages are, especially in those first 12 weeks. But they wanted Jason's family to be part of this joy. They surprised his mom and dad with a video. They told his Aunt Judy and his grandmother Mary. And on a separate occasion, they even gave Travis Kelsey those cute little baby booties to announce they were expecting. Can you imagine the excitement in that moment? Like Travis finding out he's going to be an uncle again. The whole family celebrating this new life that's coming. And then boom, everything changed. The week after they got back from London, Kylie went in for her scheduled checkup. And this is the part where I legitimately got chills, because what happened next is every expecting parent's worst nightmare. She's lying there on the exam table, probably thinking about baby names or nursery colors or whatever expectant parents think about, and then she notices the doctor's face change. The room goes silent, and they can't find the baby on the Doppler. And I can't even imagine what was racing through her mind in that moment. Like, your brain probably goes into complete panic mode, right? The doctor informs her that she had what's called a missed miscarriage, which, if you don't know what that is, let me explain, because this detail is actually really important to understanding why this was so traumatic for her. A missed miscarriage means that the baby stopped developing, but your body doesn't realize it. So you're still feeling pregnant. You might still have symptoms. Your body is still acting like everything is fine, but the pregnancy is no longer viable. And they estimated that the baby had stopped developing somewhere between 9 and 10 weeks, which means she had been carrying this loss without even knowing it. Now, here's the part that absolutely destroyed me, and I think this is what makes Kylie's story so incredibly powerful and relatable. She found out about the miscarriage on Jason's birthday. Like, of all the days for this to happen, it had to be his birthday. And listen to what she did. She called her mom and told her that she couldn't tell Jason because it was his birthday. She actually tried to hold this devastating news inside because she didn't want to ruin his special day. And I know that might sound silly to some people, but honestly, it shows you the kind of person Kylie is. Even in her darkest moment, she's thinking about protecting the people she loves. Of course, she did tell him, and she says it was hard for both of them, which is such an understatement because how do you even begin to process that kind of loss? You just told your entire family you're having a baby. You made these big announcements. You gave out baby booties. You made surprise videos. And now you have to go back and tell everyone that the baby is gone. And this is something I think people don't talk about enough. The emotional labor of having to notify everyone about a miscarriage after you've already shared the good news is its own special kind of torture. But wait, because this is where Kylie's honesty becomes so important and why I think this conversation needs to happen more publicly. She openly admits that even after having 4 healthy daughters, this loss still hurts. She literally says this still hurts after having 4 children. Because it does, and it's okay. And I think that's such a powerful statement because society has this weird expectation that once you have successful pregnancies, you should just get over your previous losses. Like, oh, well, at least you have kids now, so you should be fine. But that's not how grief works. That's not how trauma works. Each pregnancy is its own unique experience, and losing one doesn't diminish just because you were successful later. The impact of this miscarriage on Kylie was profound, and you can hear it in the way she describes how it affected her subsequent pregnancies. She says it messed with her brain and made her incredibly guarded about sharing future pregnancy news. Like, when she was pregnant with Wyatt, their first daughter, who's now 6 years old, she didn't tell anyone until after 20 weeks. That's 5 months of keeping this huge secret because she was so terrified of having to go through that pain again. And for her next pregnancies, she waited at least 16 weeks before making any announcements. And then she drops this really dark but honest detail that I think so many women will relate to. She says she Googled almost every week what the percentage likelihood was that a baby could survive. And she acknowledges that sounds really dark, but honestly, it's just real. I've been reading comments from people responding to her story, and the overwhelming response is gratitude. Women are thanking her for being so open about this because miscarriage is still so taboo in our society. People don't talk about it enough. They suffer in silence. They think they're alone. They blame themselves. And when someone with a platform like Kylie comes out and says, hey, this happened to me and it still affects me years later, it gives other people permission to acknowledge their own grief and trauma. What really gets me about this whole situation is Kylie's empathy for others who are still struggling. At the beginning of her story, she specifically addresses people who are still in their journey and haven't gotten to meet their tiny humans yet. And she says, I am so sorry. Like, she's using her own healed but still tender experience to reach out to people who are currently in the thick of that pain. And I think that's what makes her such a genuine person. She's not just sharing her story for attention or sympathy, she's sharing it because she knows it might help someone else feel less alone. The Kelceys now have 4 daughters, Wyatt, who's 6, Aaliyah, who's 4, Bennett, who's 2, and their newest addition, Finley, who's only 7 months old. So they have this beautiful full family, but Kylie wants everyone to know that this fullness doesn't erase the empty space left by the baby they lost. Both things can be true at the same time. You can be grateful for what you have and still mourn what you lost. And I think that's a message that extends beyond just pregnancy loss. It applies to so many areas of life where we're told we should just be grateful and move on instead of acknowledging that complex emotions can coexist. Jason Kelce just retired from the NFL after an incredible career, and now they're navigating this new chapter of life together. And knowing what they've been through together makes their relationship even more meaningful in my eyes. They've weathered real storms, not just the football pressures or the media attention, but genuine life-altering grief, and they came out the other side stronger. What I find particularly interesting is the timing of Kylie sharing this story now. It's been years since the miscarriage happened. She's had 3 successful pregnancies since then. So why open up about it now on her podcast? And I think the answer is that she's finally in a place where she can talk about it without completely falling apart. Although she did get emotional during the telling, which shows this wound is still tender even if it's healed. But more importantly, I think she recognizes that her platform gives her an opportunity to normalize these conversations, to let other women know they're not broken, they're not alone, and their grief is valid no matter how much time has passed. The medical details she shared are also really important because a lot of people don't understand what a missed miscarriage is. They think if you're having a miscarriage, you'll know immediately because of symptoms. But that's not always how it works. Sometimes your body just doesn't get the memo, and you're walking around thinking everything is fine when it's not. And that disconnect between what you believe is happening and what's actually happening can be really psychologically damaging. I also want to point out how brave it is to share something this personal when you're married to someone as famous as Jason Kelce and your brother-in-law is literally Travis Kelce, who's dating Taylor Swift like one of the most famous women on the planet.
Everything this family does is under a microscope. Every word is analyzed, every emotion is scrutinized. And yet Kylie chose to be vulnerable anyway because she knew it mattered more than protecting her privacy. The response to her story has been overwhelmingly supportive, with people praising her courage and thanking her for her honesty. But I'm sure there are also people who think she should keep this private, or who don't understand why she'd talk about something so painful publicly. And to those people, I'd say this: sharing your story isn't about seeking pity. It's about creating connection. It's about breaking down the walls of shame and silence that keep people isolated in their pain. And if even one person hears Kylie's story and feels less alone in their grief, then it was worth it. Looking at the bigger picture, this conversation is part of a larger movement toward normalizing discussions about pregnancy loss, infertility, and reproductive health in general.